The cafeteria smelled like burnt protein paste and regret. I should have known better than to sit near the human section, but the gravitational adjustment chairs were only available in this corner, and my lower spine was still recovering from yesterday's zero-G combat drills. Humans? Why did the Galactic Military Academy have to accept humans? My name is Velric, and I'm what you'd call a Morvathian, which means I've got 4 arms, bioluminescent skin that shifts colors based on mood, and absolutely zero patience for the chaos that seems to follow the Earthborn like a bad smell. We were supposed to be the elite, the best of the best from 47 different species across the Andromeda sector, and then the humans showed up 3 cycles ago and turned everything sideways. The one sitting 2 tables away was named Marcus Webb. Tall for his species, dark hair that looked like he'd just rolled out of a sleeping pod, and this annoyingly casual way of existing that made every other species nervous. He was laughing at something his friend was saying, a female human named Kira Voss, who had bright red hair that apparently wasn't natural, but something they did for fun. Fun. Imagine altering your appearance for entertainment. I was minding my own business, really I was, shoveling down my 3rd helping of thermal kelp, when the tray incident happened. You know those moments where time seems to slow down? Where you can see the disaster unfolding but you're powerless to stop it? Yeah, that. A Centauri cadet, big guy named Horville, wasn't watching where his tail was going. It swept across the aisle just as a serving drone was passing, and suddenly there were plates flying everywhere. One of them, loaded with what looked like human food, something they called spaghetti, went airborne in a perfect arc directly toward Marcus. Now any sensible species would have just taken the hit. Except the mess. Clean up. Move on. But humans? Oh no. Marcus moved so fast I barely tracked it. One moment he was sitting, the next he'd shifted sideways, caught the plate with one hand, and somehow managed to redirect a flying cup with the other. The problem was in doing so he'd stepped backward directly into my space, and my hand, my stupid, curious hand, reached out instinctively to steady him. That's when I touched it. His forearm, left side, where the skin had this strange pattern of dark lines forming an intricate symbol. Later I'd learn it was called a tattoo, another bizarre human custom. But this wasn't just decoration. The moment my 3rd hand made contact with the mark, the entire cafeteria went silent. Not figuratively silent. Actually, completely, utterly silent. Marcus froze. Kira Voss dropped her drink. 3 other human cadets at nearby tables stood up so fast their chairs clattered backward, and Horville, the Centauri, who'd caused this whole mess, made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. Oh no, someone whispered. I think it was Prin, a Yalvex cadet with exceptional hearing. Oh no. I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. What? What did I do? Marcus turned slowly, and his expression was somewhere between shock and something I couldn't identify. Humans had so many facial configurations it was exhausting keeping track. You touched the combat mark, Kira said, her voice low and careful, like she was explaining something to a youngling who'd just activated a plasma grenade. His combat mark. So, I held up all 4 hands defensively. It was an accident, I was just trying to help. What's the big deal about a decorative skin pattern? The humans exchanged looks. That thing they do where they communicate entire conversations with just eye movements and tiny expressions. Infuriating. Marcus cleared his throat. It's not decorative. It's... He paused, seeming to search for words. It's a binding oath. A what? A binding oath, another human called from across the room. He was older, maybe an instructor, definitely military by his posture. Specific to human warrior traditions, when someone outside the bondholder touches a combat mark, it creates a debt. My bioluminescent skin flashed bright orange, the Morvathian equivalent of extreme alarm. A debt? What kind of debt? I don't owe humans anything. This was an accident. Not that kind of debt, Marcus said, and now he looked uncomfortable. It means I owe you protection. In battle, in conflict, in any situation where your life is threatened, I'm bound to intervene. The cafeteria remained silent. Someone coughed. A serving drone beeped nervously in the corner. That's ridiculous, I said, but my voice came out weaker than intended. That's completely ridiculous. You can't be serious. This is just superstition, right? Ancient nonsense? Kira shook her head slowly. Humans don't joke about combat marks. They're tied to neural patterns, biological imperatives. It's not just tradition, it's hardwired. When someone touches a mark, the bondholder feels compelled to protect them. Not legally, but instinctively. But I don't want protection. My skin cycled through several colors, none of them calm. I'm a third-year tactical specialist. I can protect myself. I don't need some human following me around like a bodyguard. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely troubled. Look, I don't love this either, but the mark doesn't care what we want. For the next lunar cycle, maybe longer, my combat reflexes are going to prioritize your safety. I'll feel it when you're in danger. I'll have this urge to respond, to shield, to fight for you. This is insane. Welcome to human biology, Kira said with a shrug. We're full of weird evolutionary holdovers. This is just one of them. Horval, the Zentari who'd started this mess, slithered over apologetically. I'm sorry, Velric. I didn't mean for my tail to cause such trouble. Is there anything I can do? Unless you can reverse weird human blood magic. Probably not, I snapped, then immediately felt bad. Horval was decent enough, just clumsy. Sorry. Not your fault. This is just unexpected. The cafeteria slowly returned to normal operations, though I noticed several cadets still watching us. Watching me and Marcus specifically. Great. Just what I needed. More attention. Marcus sat down at my table, without asking. Kira followed, along with two other humans I didn't recognize, a stocky male with scars across his knuckles, and a lean female with calculating eyes. We should probably talk, Marcus said. Figure out how to handle this. Handle what? There's nothing to handle. You go your way, I go mine, and we pretend this never happened. Doesn't work like that, the scarred human said. I'm Dax, by the way, and she's Lena. We both carry combat marks too. Different patterns. Same principles. Lena nodded. The bond will pull at him. He'll sense when you're stressed, frightened, in pain. Won't be able to focus on his own training until he verifies you're safe. That sounds like a him problem, not a me problem. Except it affects performance evaluations, Kira pointed out. If Marcus keeps ditching exercises to check on you, his scores drop. If his scores drop too much, he gets recycled back a year, maybe expelled. The academy doesn't make exceptions for cultural practices they don't understand. I stared at them. So you're saying because I accidentally touched his arm he might get kicked out? Pretty much. Yeah, Dax said cheerfully. Too cheerfully, unless you two figure out a system. My skin turned a defeated grey-blue. What kind of system? Marcus leaned forward. We coordinate schedules, train together when possible. During separate exercises you check in at regular intervals so I know you're fine. It doesn't have to be complicated. Doesn't have to be complicated, he says, I muttered, switching to my species' sarcastic subsonic frequency without thinking. Unfortunately, humans had decent hearing in that range too, and Marcus raised an eyebrow. Look, I get it. You didn't ask for this. Neither did I. But we're stuck with it for now, so we might as well make the best of it. The best of it, I repeated. The best of accidentally creating a mystical warrior bond in a cafeteria. Sure. Why not? This cycle couldn't get any weirder. Famous last words. Because that's when the alarm started blaring, and the Academy's emergency system announced that all cadets were to report to combat stations immediately. Priority alert. Actual threat detected. Not a drill. Marcus's expression shifted instantly. That casual, almost lazy demeanor vanished, replaced by something sharp and focused. His hand moved to his side, where I now noticed he carried a combat blade. Humans and their archaic weapons. Stay close, he said, already moving toward the exit. I can handle myself, I protested, but I was moving too. Every cadet in the cafeteria was moving. Trained responses overriding panic. I know you can, Marcus called back. But I'm still going to be there anyway, so you might as well accept it. Kira grabbed my shoulder with one hand, her grip surprisingly strong. He's not questioning your abilities. It's just the mark. Don't take it personally. How am I supposed to not take it personally? She grinned, all teeth. Practice. We poured into the corridors, joining hundreds of other cadets, rushing toward designated stations. The academy was massive, a converted military installation that housed over 2,000 students from dozens of species. Whatever had triggered the alarm had to be serious. They didn't evacuate the cafeteria for minor threats. My assigned station was Deck 7, defensive perimeter. Marcus's should have been Deck 12, offensive response team. But as we reached the main junction where cadets split toward different sections, he stayed with me. Marcus, your station. I know where my station is. You're going to get disciplined, probably. He said it so casually, like accepting punishment for following instinct was just another day, and maybe for humans, it was. They were famous for their irrational decisions, their tendency to prioritize strange emotional bonds over logical outcomes. We reached Deck 7 and I reported to Commander Thaxis, a stern Corellian with mandibles that clicked when he was annoyed, which was always. Cadet Velric, why do you have an unauthorized human with you? Long story, sir. Involves cultural bonding practices and cafeteria accidents. Thaxis's mandibles clicked harder. I don't care if you two are engaged in courtship rituals. This is a combat situation. Cadet Marcus, report to your proper station immediately. Marcus didn't move. With respect, Commander, I can't do that. The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. You didn't refuse direct orders from commanders. Not if you wanted to stay enrolled. Not if you wanted a career. Excuse me? I'm bound to protect Cadet Velric. Combat Mark Oath. If I leave and something happens to him, I won't be able to function anyway. I'll be more useful here. Thaxis stared at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, his mandibles stopped clicking. Humans, he muttered. Fine. You're reassigned to Deck 7 defensive team. But if this is some elaborate excuse to avoid combat, I will personally throw you out an airlock. Understood, sir. The commander moved on to organize other cadets, and I turned to Marcus. You just defied a direct order for me. Technically, I requested reassignment for culturally significant reasons. You're going to get in so much trouble. He checked his weapon, that antique blade, and smiled. It wasn't a comfortable smile. It was the kind of smile that suggested humans maybe weren't as soft as other species like to believe. Worth it, he said. And that's when the first explosion hit, and everything went straight to hell. The explosion rattled the deck plating hard enough to make my teeth vibrate. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in angry red, and somewhere an alarm was screaming like a wounded Threxian. Not the calm, collected training scenario I'd imagined for my first real combat situation. Commander Thaxis was shouting orders, positioning cadets at strategic choke points along the corridor. Whatever was attacking had breached the outer hull. Deck 7 was now the front line, and we were about to find out if 3 years of academy training meant anything when actual shooting started. Defensive positions. Energy shields up. Weapons-free protocol. Thaxis's mandibles were clicking so fast they sounded like malfunctioning machinery. I moved to my assigned spot, a reinforced barrier overlooking the main access corridor. Marcus followed, taking position beside me without asking. His blade was out now, which seemed laughably inadequate compared to the plasma rifle I was carrying, but he held it like he knew exactly what to do with it. What kind of idiot brings a knife to a plasma fight? I muttered, checking my weapon's charge. The kind who's killed 17 hostiles in close quarters with this knife, Marcus replied calmly. Plus, doesn't run out of ammunition. Before I could respond, the corridor ahead filled with movement. Not the organized movement of military forces, chaotic, scrambling, wrong. Pirates, I realized, had to be pirates. The Academy's location wasn't exactly secret, but hitting a galactic military installation took either incredible stupidity or desperation. Apparently our attackers had both in abundance. They came around the corner in a disorganized wave. Mixed species, mismatched armor, weapons that ranged from military grade to barely functional, about 20 of them. maybe more behind. Their leader was a massive Drakorian, scales covered in crude battle markings, roaring something about the Academy's vault, and how they were all going to be rich. "Contact," someone yelled unnecessarily, because by then everyone could see them. Thaxis gave the order. "Fire." The corridor lit up with plasma bolts. I squeezed my trigger, felt the rifle kick against my shoulder, watched 3 pirates drop in the first volley. Training took over. Breathe, aim, fire, breathe, aim, fire. The repetition felt almost meditative, except for the part where people were trying to kill us. The pirates had energy shields too, flickering barriers that absorbed the first few shots, but they were cheap shields, probably stolen, and they shattered under sustained fire. The Drakorian leader took 6 direct hits and kept coming, which was terrifying because Drakorians were supposed to go down after 3, maximum. Combat stimulants, I realized. They'd drugged themselves up for this raid. Great. Wonderful. Fighting opponents too chemically altered to feel pain. My favorite. Marcus hadn't moved from beside me. Hadn't fired a weapon because he didn't have a ranged weapon. Just stood there, watching, blade ready, positioned slightly in front of me. The combat mark doing its thing, I supposed, making him think about my safety, instead of his own. "You should take cover," I told him between shots. "I am in cover. You're standing in the open." "Yes, between you and them. That's the point." A pirate broke through the defensive line on our left, a Zentarai bigger than Horval, wielding a vibro-axe that could cut through bulkheads. It charged toward our position, probably thinking 2 cadets would be easy targets. Wrong assumption. Marcus moved so fast I almost didn't track it. One moment standing still, the next moment he was inside the Zentauri's reach, blade coming up in a precise arc that found the gap between chest armor and helmet. The pirate dropped, momentum carrying its body past us to crash against the wall. "Ancestors," I breathed. "Where did you learn to move like that?" "Earth," Marcus said, like that explained anything. He flicked blood off his blade, watching for the next threat. Specifically a very unpleasant place called Detroit. Makes this look organized. 3 more pirates pushed through. Marcus killed 2 of them before I could even adjust my aim. The third got close enough that I had to drop my rifle and pull my sidearm. But by then Marcus had already positioned himself as a barrier, his blade work keeping the attacker focused on him instead of me. I shot the pirate in the back. Not sporting, but also not stupid. "You're good at this," I admitted, reloading. "Humans are good at violence," Marcus replied. Not bragging, just stating a fact, like discussing weather patterns. "We've had a lot of practice." The Drakorian leader broke through the center defensive line. Commander Thaxis tried to stop it, firing his weapon until it overheated, but the stimulants kept the massive pirate moving. It swung a heavy plasma cannon like a club, smashing 2 cadets aside, roaring about treasure and glory and other nonsense. Then it saw me. Don't ask me why. Maybe I looked like an easy target. Maybe my bioluminescent skin made me stand out. Maybe it just picked randomly, but its eyes locked onto me, and it charged with single-minded determination. I fired. Every shot hit. The Drakorians' shields were down, armor cracked, blood leaking from multiple wounds. It should have dropped, should have died, but the drugs kept it upright, kept it moving, kept it coming. Marcus stepped forward to intercept. "No!" I shouted, because this was insane. That thing outweighed him by at least 200 pounds. One hit from that plasma cannon would turn him into paste. He didn't listen. Of course he didn't listen. The combat mark wasn't about logic or self-preservation. It was about the bond, the obligation, the weird human need to protect what they'd claimed as theirs. The Drakorian swung, Marcus ducked under it, blade flashing. Once, twice, 3 times. Precision cuts to major arteries, tendons, nerve clusters. The kind of strikes that required perfect anatomical knowledge and absolutely zero hesitation. The Drakorian crashed down, finally overwhelmed by blood loss and structural damage, dead before it hit the deck. Marcus was breathing hard, spattered with blood that wasn't his, blade still ready. Around us, the fight was ending. The pirates who weren't dead were retreating, dragging wounded with them. Academy security forces were arriving from other sections, proper soldiers with proper equipment, turning the tide decisively. Commander Thaxis surveyed the damage, mandibles clicking in what might have been approval. Acceptable performance, he announced, which from a Corellian was practically a medal ceremony. Casualties are minimal. Defensive line held. Well done. He looked directly at Marcus. Especially you, human. That Drakorian would have broken through and killed at least 5 cadets if you hadn't stopped it. I'm recommending you for commendation. Thank you, sir. Also recommending you for disciplinary review for abandoning your assigned station. Understood, sir. Thaxis, mandibles, clicked in a way that might have been amusement. Humans, you're all insane. Dismissed. Medical teams arrived, treating the wounded. I had minor cuts, nothing serious. Marcus had somehow avoided injury entirely, which seemed statistically impossible given what he'd just done. Maybe humans really were harder to kill than their fragile appearance suggested. Kira found us in the medical bay, relief obvious on her face. Her Deck 7 saw the worst of it. You two okay? Define okay? I said, letting a medical drone seal a cut on my second arm. I'm physically intact. Mentally, I'm processing the fact that a human just saved my life using a primitive blade against an opponent twice his size. 3 times his size, Marcus corrected. That Drakorian was huge. Not helping, Kira grinned. So the combat mark worked as advertised. I hate that you're right. My skin was cycling through colors I didn't even recognize. Relief, gratitude, annoyance, fear, all mixing together. I really genuinely hate that you're right. Marcus sat down heavily, adrenaline clearly wearing off. For what it's worth, I hate it too, not the protecting you part. That felt right. But the knowing I didn't have a choice, that my biology just hijacked my decision-making. Yeah, not a fan. Welcome to being human, Kira said. We're mostly impulses and questionable evolutionary choices wrapped in denial. The next few hours were chaos of a different kind. Debriefings, statements, damage assessments. The pirates had been after the Academy vault, which contained experimental technology and artifacts from across the galaxy. They'd failed spectacularly, losing most of their raiding party and accomplishing nothing except proving that attacking a military installation was a terrible idea. 17 cadets were injured, 3 seriously, but 0 fatalities, which apparently was remarkable considering the circumstances. Commander Thaxis made a point of publicly acknowledging the defensive teams, and specifically mentioned Marcus's actions against the Drakorian leader. By evening cycle, word had spread through the entire academy. The human who'd defied orders to honor a combat mark. The Morvathian who'd accidentally created a warrior bond in the cafeteria. We were suddenly famous, which was absolutely the last thing I wanted. Marcus and I sat in the observation deck, watching stars through the reinforced viewport. The Academy orbited a small moon, positioned to provide views of the nebula beyond. Pretty, in an overwhelming sort of way. So, I said finally, how long does this bond last? Depends. Usually a lunar cycle, sometimes longer, until my instincts accept that you're safe, that the debt is paid, that the protection is no longer needed. And today didn't count? He shook his head. Today made it worse. I actually had to protect you, actually fought for you. The mark interprets that as validation, proof that the bond serves a purpose. It'll be stronger now. Fantastic. I let my skin fade to tired purple. I'm going to have a human shadow for weeks. Could be worse, Marcus pointed out. Could be months. You're really not helping. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, a patrol ship passed, running lights blinking steadily. Inside, the academy was slowly returning to normal, or whatever passed for normal after a pirate raid. Thank you, I said quietly, for what you did today. I know you didn't have a choice, but still, thank you. Marcus looked at me, expression unreadable. You're welcome, and for what it's worth, even without the mark, I think I would have done the same thing. You seem like someone worth protecting. My skin flashed, surprised cyan. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me at this academy. Then people here need to raise their standards. I laughed. Actual laughter, which felt strange after the day we'd had. You know what the worst part is? I think we might actually become friends. Horrifying prospect, Marcus agreed, but he was smiling. Absolutely terrifying. We could compare notes. You teach me about Morvathian tactical theory, I teach you about human close-quarters combat. That blade work was impressive, I admitted. Stupid, but impressive. I prefer the term tactically flexible. You prefer the term stupid. You just dress it up with better words. Kira appeared in the doorway, Dax and Lena behind her. There you two are. We're heading to the recreation center. Figured after today everyone could use some downtime. You coming? I looked at Marcus. He shrugged. Might as well. Not like I can be more than 10 meters away from you anyway without getting anxious. The combat mark. The combat mark. I hate your species biology. Join the club. We have shirts. We followed the other humans toward the recreation center. Behind us the stars kept turning, the nebula kept glowing, and the academy kept training the next generation of galactic defenders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, new chances to accidentally create mystical warrior bonds, or fight pirates, or do whatever other insane things apparently happened at advanced military institutions. But tonight we were alive. We'd survived our first real combat, and somehow against all probability and common sense, I'd gained a human friend who was biologically compelled to keep me breathing. Could be worse, I supposed. Could be a lot worse. Though I was definitely avoiding the cafeteria for the foreseeable future, one binding oath was quite enough. Thank you very much.